Thank you, everyone. I know it's late in the day, last session, actually. So, my name is Sebastian Dijmonescu. I'm a PM in the product operations group.
And I'm Sarika Mahapatra. I'm the engineering manager of search team. And if you have run any searches on Sumo Logic, well, that would be a little bit of connection between us.
Is it better now?
Can you?
Is it better now? Can you guys hear me? Is it better now?
Am I audible? Audible? Yes.
Is it better now? Yes. It's all good? Thank you.
Perfect.
Should I scream now? Okay. Perfect.
All right.
Yeah. So this was a searching for an answer. Perfect. So let's get started. So don't get too excited. This is not the place we're going to have the happy hour at 5 o'clock. And if you are disappointed, this is in fact actually the session about machine data. Quick show of hands, how many people would like to dine out? I know we have a ton of people here. Almost unanimous, perfect. So, and if you are like me, you like to dine out from time to time, but is every experience the same? So it's a beautiful evening. The night that you waited for so long, it's finally here. It's your anniversary. You're going to take your wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner. You're going to have a nice dinner. You have a reservation to this very nice restaurant. And as soon as you walk in, the hostess comes to you. She's going to seat you to a nice, comfortable chair. The decor is beautiful. The menu is covered in leather, beautifully printed. When the food starts coming in, it not only tastes delicious, but it also is presented exquisitely. The decor is beautiful, the ambience, the music is soothing, everything is great, just like you're living the dream. When it comes down to pay the check, you know that you got a great value for the money, and everything was exactly as you wanted. Sorry. A few days have passed, and now you have lunch with your friends. And you went to a buffet that just opened recently in the downtown area. And you read the reviews, you know the quality of the food is going to be varied, pretty good, clean, family friendly. But of course, you're not going to expect a 1-star Michelin star experience. So the waiters will not check on you all the time. You might wait in a short line when you help yourself for the food. But overall, it's going to be a very nice experience, even if you have to experience the tantrum of a 5-year-old on the booth nearby. When time comes to pay, when time comes to pay, I apologize. I should speak Romanian. Probably is going to make it even more interesting for you. When it comes times to pay, you know you got a great value for the money paid, and everything was exactly the way you wanted. It's weekend now, and you go to a soccer game. So you have your son has a tournament in a city nearby, and between the games, everybody's hungry. Of course, everybody wants a different type of food, and you find a place on Yelp. It has good reviews, and it said, "Let's go check it out." And as soon as you enter the restaurant, you see the sign, "Prohibito entrar con caballos," and you realize it is your lucky day. You don't have the horse with you, so you can go in. For those non-speaking people, it means that you cannot enter with the horse in the restaurant. So the line is not too big, as you see, but you still have to wait a few minutes to get your food. You get a cup, you order from the menu on the wall, you get a cup of water in a plastic, you go sit down in a noisy place. But when you get the food, you know why this place was rated at 4.8 stars. The food was delicious. And when you leave, you know that you got a great value for the money, and you experience exactly what you were hoping for. So 3 different restaurants, 3 different experiences. Every single time we had a different menu, quality of the food, ambience, service, and cost. But every single time, we got a great value for our money.
That's great, Sebastian, but what does this have anything to do with data?
That's a great question. And in fact, it has nothing to do with data. I'm just kidding. It has everything to do with data. So if you really think about it, data has the same machine data especially has the same unique characteristics. You can segment it by use case. You can analyze it and process it in different ways. And more importantly, you want to pay a different cost to match the value of each data type. So let's explore this in more detail. You come from different, you represent here different industries. Probably you come from manufacturing, retail, travel, e-commerce, travel industries. And when talking with some of you and at the conference, the most common business objective was revenue. And for a service, a modern service or application, being continuously operating continuously and being secure is number one priority. If you're in charge with running and monitoring the application, 99.99% uptime is not a goal. Actually, it's a survival necessity in this very competitive world. So being down obviously is not an option. If you're a retail, if you're in retail, the checkout or the search has to be up all the time. If you're in travel, the booking system cannot return errors. If you're an IoT, the device that controls the heating or cooling of your house has to work when most needed. If you're in healthcare, you absolutely cannot lose a patient. If you're in airline industry, you have to know, you and the customers have to know all the time where the luggage is. And if somebody tells you, you know what, so what, we're only down 5 minutes. Think about it. What if every single minute cost you $2, $5, or $10,000 in lost revenue? If your job is security, if your job is security application, you want to monitor the critical events and you want to be notified when something goes wrong. And if a major event happens, not only can be disastrous for the business, it can create a PR nightmare, and the $5,000 you lost in lost revenue is just pocket change at that point. So in order to be successful in all these tasks, you need a platform that is secure, it's scalable and elastic, can grow and go down with your ingest. And not ultimately, you have to have proactive monitoring, alerting, powerful search, dashboard, real-time analysis, real-time visibility in the data, and not least have a powerful machine learning so you can decrease the time to identify and troubleshoot the app. So at the end of the month, when you're going to look at your usage chart, you're going to know that you got a great value for the money and you got everything you expected. So now we know what it means, what the code in production does, and we want to see how can we reduce the risk of getting to those problems, and also can we run some optimization. So you spend probably countless hours in front of a screen writing thousands line of code, and I'm not a developer, but I know if you had a pizza or a favorite drink and you think it helped you write flawless code, we have to make sure that that's the case. So what can you do to economically analyze the debug logs in the pre-production or sandbox environment? Also, if you are like Sumo, you want to constantly run optimization projects. For example, we run search optimization projects, and we're just trying to shave 1 to 2 seconds or maybe milliseconds on the search experience. Or if when we're implementing a new API on the checkout process, we want to save, again, a few seconds of that experience. And finally, sometimes we try new machine types or instance types. We are on AWS, and we all constantly try what's new out there, and we are trying to do that for 2 reasons. One, it's optimization of the cost, reducing of cost, and then hopefully better experience. So in all these cases, so in talking to you, we learned that you have a solution right now. You're putting together different storage options, you use maybe a low end or even a free analytics alternative, or sometimes you revert just to graphing. And you know you cannot justify the price of the full analytics solution for this kind of data sets. So what can you do? So what we are trying, what if Sumo would provide you a solution that can remove some of those critical capabilities that you, not critical capabilities, I'm sorry, some powerful capabilities like alerting and dashboards, and give you an economical solution to collect and analyze this type of data and extract the most value out of it. And at the end of the month, when you look at the usage chart, you're going to know that you got a great value for the money and you got exactly everything you expected for. Let's imagine I'm the PM at your company, and my boss comes to me and says, hey, Sebastian, I want you to run me a report and see the usage of this capability 3 months or 6 months or 9 months ago. Or you have an internal audit from finance or security and said, I want you to look at 10 months old data to look at these specific events. Or if you're an IoT company and you would like to collect all kind of device information like channel up, down, channel switch, volume up, down, accelerometer information, temperature reading, and all kind of information. And you want to use a sliver of that data to drive application decisions. And I'm going to give one final, more dramatic example. When you have an external pressure to investigate, when FBI comes knocking on your door, and at that point you want to use some home automation or home security data as a potential proof of a crime that happened. Not proof, I'm sorry, I forgot the word. So in all these cases, from when talking to you, the answer that we heard over and over is, the answer that you're giving to your internal stakeholders is, I'm sorry, we did not collect this data. I'm sorry, we did not store this data. You know the value of the data. You would like to collect the data, but there's not economically possible to do that. And to be truthful, in fact, sometimes you do collect that data. And then the question becomes, how you're going to access it. How you're going to prepare for analytics. How you're going to make it available. In which tool are you going to make it available? What kind of expertise is necessary to do that? Is that aligned to your KPIs and so forth? So we're asking you, don't compromise. What if Sumo will provide you a solution to economically collect and store the data, and when you want to analyze, you're going to have the ability to do that on demand. You're not going to do that all the time. You're going to do it infrequently and only for a small subset of the data. And at the end of the month, when you're going to look at your usage, you're going to know that you got a great value for the money and you got exactly everything you expected for. So what did big data, machine data had in common with the dining experience? Each of these experiences had a different use case, a different availability, different capability, different analytical needs, platform capabilities, and not ultimate different cost. But every single time, you got a great value for your money.
So in summary, basically this is a very, very powerful observation that Sebastian just made. The key point here is that not all data is equal. Every different data set has a very different value. And it is important that you choose a data platform that is powerful and flexible enough so that you can look beyond the tip of the iceberg and look at all the rest of the data at a price that is in line with the value of the data. So Sumo Logic offers 3 different data tiers for different kinds of data sets. All the 3 different data tiers are built on top of the same fundamental foundational building blocks of a robust and secure data platform. Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, all of them is capable of handling any volume of data that you send to Sumo at any velocity. And we are perfectly capable, due to a highly elastic platform, to be able to ingest any variations in ingest spikes, planned or unplanned. Also, another important point is that if there are ingestion spikes, we are perfectly capable of ingesting the data at a reasonable latency without impacting the performance of any other capabilities in the rest of the system. The second part is all the three different tiers is capable of handling and working with a variety of data, structured or unstructured. All the three different analytics tiers have the tools available to analyze, to process and transform and turn your unstructured data into valuable insights. A third and very important key point is that all the three different tiers are based on top of an inherently multi-tenant architecture. What that means for you is that you get a very cost-effective and highly performant system. So what are the difference in the three tiers in terms of capabilities? Tier 1 is the tier for your high-value mission-critical data sets. What that means is Tier 1 has all the required tools that you need to be able to monitor, troubleshoot, visualize and analyze your data in real time. In terms of capabilities, the available features for Tier 1 are live and interactive dashboards, interactive and API searches, scheduled searches and auto views, as well as live tail and so much more. Coming over to Tier 2 data is the perfect solution for your non-mission critical data sets that you need to be able to look into and search through to find out potential log lines or to be able to analyze it, but you don't necessarily need to continuously monitor that data. So it has all the exact same search capabilities, same as Tier 1, but it is search only. Tier 3, coming over to Tier 3 is the perfect data set to store huge volumes of data in a highly cost-effective manner. In Tier 3, the data that you send, you will not be able to look into the data at any possible time, but if at any point you want to go back in time and you want to look into a data or search for a particular slice of the data, you need to prepare that data set, and post preparation it will be available to you exactly in the same form as a Tier 2 data set. And that Tier 2 data set will have the same set of search capabilities, exactly the same as Tier 2 data, which is full power search capabilities, same as Tier 1 or Tier 2 data set. So let's quickly walk through an example of how a modern business can map their mental model of the data sets of different value data sets and map it to the Sumo Logic's data tiers to leverage the benefits of the data tiers to be able to use it in the most cost optimal fashion. So Travel Logic, we're going to walk through with an example of Travel Logic as a company, and what Travel Logic does is that it is a travel site that allows you to do flight bookings, hotel bookings and everything travel. And the aim of Travel Logic, like any great company, is to become the #1 go-to booking platform, right? And to be able to do that, what does it require? It doesn't necessarily only require that the customers should be able to finish their and accomplish a certain set of tasks. It requires much more. It requires that your customers should fall in love with your product, which means that Travel Logic takes 3 KPIs extremely seriously, 3 goals extremely seriously. 1, that the service should be up and running at all times. 2nd, that the service should be snappy, it should be fast. 3rd, that any customer issues should get addressed and resolved as quickly as possible. Now let's see how do they achieve that in a cost-effective manner using the 3 different data tiers. Here's the first example, wherein Travel Logic sends in all the operational data into Sumo Logic as Tier 1 data, and the SRE team sets up an operational dashboard to monitor the most important KPIs for your backend services. What this enables them to do, so for example, there is a checkout service which is facing errors right now, and the customers are unable to book any of the tickets, for example. Like Sebastian has mentioned, this could translate into dollars of revenue loss per minute, which is not the best scenario. Having set an alert on top of the checkout service errors means that as soon as the service is unavailable, on call on the payment service team gets a call, they get on the, they wake up, and they open up a troubleshooting dashboard which they have pre-prepared to be able to figure out the severity of the issue and also to drill down and figure out what component in the workflow is actually the offending component which is not working as expected. Having figured out that it is probably most likely the payment service that is not working as expected, and then further drilling down into the error logs, your on-call is able to figure out that it is a specific, probably a specific node in the payment service which is not returning the responses in time. The responses are timing out, and that's why the customers are unable to check out and make any bookings. A quick restart to the service brings the service up online, and the service is up and running in no time. This type of quick MTTI and MTTR, a reduction in MTTI and MTTR translates directly to saving millions of dollars in revenue potentially over a period of a year, right? And it also results in happier customers, which is the most important thing here. And that's why this is a very, very good example of a high value data set. Let's take another great example of a high value tier 1 data set. Imagine that you are planning your next vacation to Bali, and I'm going to pick Bali because that's my favorite destination. And you're browsing through Travel Logic and you found this extremely nice, pretty hotel overlooking the beach, and you're already daydreaming about surfing on the beach, spending a great day on the beach while filling in your credit card details, and then you have hit that process payment button. The spinner keeps spinning and you eventually land at a page which says, hey, there was some error and we could not finish your processing, please contact customer support. Well, for sure the customer is swearing that they are never going to be making any bookings with your site ever again, but the customer support gives you a call without you reaching out to them, and then they say that we apologize for any inconvenience, your booking made through and you're all set to go. You just won your customer back. And that's why this is another great example where you should be sending all your important logs of important user workflows into Sumo Logic, and then you can empower your customer support team to reach out to your customers, even in most cases proactively, and to mitigate the customer issues as proactively and as quickly as possible. And that's what makes it a great example of, another great example of tier 1 data set. Let's switch gears and go to a tier 2 example in the context of Travel Logic. Like Sebastian was talking about earlier, assume that while the payments team was struggling with this checkout issue that they were facing, the team in Bangalore was trying to make their the flights team, it's the flights team, and then they're trying to optimize the performance of the flight search page. Right, and their quarter goal is to bring down the 95th percentile speed of the flight searches from 2 seconds down to 1 second. And they have written this great performance benchmarking tool so that they can quickly test out any of the performance changes and optimizations that they make. The tool, what it does is it runs a bunch of queries on top of your code changes, and then it generates a bunch of logs. They were smart enough to ingest all of these logs back into Sumo so that they can very quickly analyze to figure out the exact performance gain that you get out of each of the performance changes. But in addition, another important aspect here is if they ingest all the application debug logs from all the services that come into the picture to serve the flight search results, what that enables them to do, any particular single slow query, you can go and look into a level of detail that will help you figure out the exact performance bottlenecks in the system. That's why this is a great example of application debug logs, because you don't necessarily need to monitor on top of this, but having them around in case so that you can search through the details of them is extremely important and can be highly valuable. Let's come to an example of tier 3 data sets. Again, extending the example what Sebastian started off from, let's say now Travel Logic wants to go for this new compliance which requires them to store any data set that is related to any customer private data that you touch. Any data that you have stored for any customer, anybody who is viewing that data, and eventually the data that you have to, the proof that you have deleted the data once the customer has disabled their account from Travel Logic. You need to store all of this data around for 15 years. That's a compliance requirement. But what you realize is that you don't probably need to look at the data frequently. It's maybe you only want to look at the data when an audit comes knocking to your door and says, hey, can you just give me any proof that this particular customer, when they disable the account, that's when you deleted all of the data from your account, right? Tier 3 can be an extremely valuable tool. You can mark those data sets as tier 3, which means all the volume of data that you store can be stored highly cost effectively, and whenever the auditors come to your door and ask for the proof that the data was deleted, at that time you can prepare the data set, you can search for that information and give it to them. So these were a bunch of examples that I just wanted to share with you so that you can figure out and go and apply it to your context and figure out how you can leverage these data tiers to be able to effectively use them in your setting. Let's briefly go over how does the whole data management work within the Sumo platform. I'll just start by saying one thing. It's extremely simple, extremely flexible, and completely self-service. There is one single data management page where you can write the routing expressions, as you can see in the second column. With the routing expressions, what happens is that all the messages that come into your Sumo system, it is matched against those routing expressions, and the expression that it matches, that's the data set or partition that it goes into. And then you can mark each of the data partitions and data sets as tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, which are also known as enhanced, basic, and cold. Is what the vocabulary that you may be familiar with. One other feature that I wanted to share with you guys is that each of the data sets, and it's a very, very important and useful tool, each of the data sets can have completely independent retention policies. So for example, the performance logs that we talked about, you may just want to retain them for a couple of weeks to 30 days maybe. After that, you don't need them. But the compliance data, you need them for say 15 years. Using the different retention policies, like you can see here, 32 days to 365 days to more, what you can do is you can optimize your storage costs within Sumo.
So in conclusion, at Sumo, we are building a platform that allows you to self-service segment your data and to extract the maximum value of it. A few things to remember. Number one, you can now collect all your data. You can store it for as long as you want, and then you can analyze all or only what you need. And please don't compromise. The price of light is less than the cost of darkness. Illuminate. Thank you. Any questions?
Great presentation. We're going to open it up for questions now. I see one hand raised.
Thank you. I have two questions, actually. One is this data is going into different tiers based on it being different data. Is there a method for keeping data in tier 1 and then migrating it to tier 2 and migrating it to tier 3 as time goes on?
So great question. So when the data comes in the system, of course, you're going to go. You bifurcate it and goes to different pipes. When the data comes at enhanced, so the tier 1, you're already paying the price of real-time analytics, the dashboard, all those kind of things. So the tier 1 to tier 2, it's not necessarily, you cannot migrate it because the cost, or you already paid the cost for that type of tier. However, from tier 1 to tier 3, kind of the long-term retention, absolutely. So you have for 30 days or for 90 days, the data is highly valuable. You need it for the DevOps or security. But beyond that, you want to store it as cheaply as possible, and you don't want to touch it. So you have it in today's world. You can keep it for 1-2 years, but the storage cost is a bit higher because it's always searchable. However, when you move it to tier 3, actually only like a tier 4, which didn't even talk about that, but it's a tier 2, 3B, you're going to have that capability. So it's non-touchable, very, very cheap. And then if you want to, at any point in time, you want to search for a sliver of the data, you bring it back, and you just prepare it for search. It's not re-ingesting or something like that. You just bring it back into one of those partitions, so then you can search again for a week, 2 weeks, whatever, a sliver of that data. Hopefully I answered your question.
Yes, that's great. And then sort of a follow-up to that is, if data is in the tier 3, I guess if it's in 3B, you pull it back. I don't know if that's the same for
So
tier
it's the
3.
same. It's the same UI. So we didn't have the code name for that is frozen. So I'm kind of jumping ahead of my skis right now, but essentially that tier when it's frozen for a very long time, then you say you prepare it for search, and I say I want the data from 3 years ago, from January 1st, January 15. I want to bring it back. It's going to take, depending on the amount of data, might take a minute, an hour, depending on that. And then after that, you can search it all the time as long as you want.
Great. Thank you.
Great questions.
Thank you so much.
Got one here.
So obviously, like, I guess all my existing data, I'm paying for, like, enhanced, I guess, right, in this new scheme. So how does this, like, once I have access to this feature, I guess, how does this impact, like, you know, what I'm paying, right, like, how does it interact with my contract now, and, like, how do I get access to this?
Perfect. So great question. I was afraid you were going to ask that. So obviously, everybody has a contract, and it says 100 GB, for example, per day, and the contract is enhanced data. You're going to have to, if you want to kind of migrate some of this data, you're going to have to work. But most of the time, what we've seen, because we roll it out this one slowly over the last few months, and almost in 99% of the cases actually was new data. And that's why I mentioned the fact that it's low-end solutions or free solutions or whatever, you know, or S3. And so you're collecting that data. Most of the time, you collect it somewhere else, or you don't collect it at all because it's not economic. It doesn't make sense. So if you work with your CAM, with the TAM, with the account manager, with the AE, you're going to figure out from your existing data how much data might qualify for, not qualify. It's really basic, and you're using kind of how you're using the behavior. What's the analytical behavior right now? So if you're using, obviously, alerting, dashboarding, it's an enhanced use case. So that's kind of the price you pay for that. Of course, if the use case doesn't match that, and your behavior, you just search only and kind of infrequent, and you don't care about other things, then obviously it's a basic case. I would work with your account manager, the TAM team, because they can look exactly your account and behavior. It's all about behavior. How do you use the data? It's not about, I know we all care about the dollar sign and how much we're paying, and we have budgets and the data. In the keynote, Ramin was showing the curve, and we had a slide at some point. It was like zettabytes and brontobytes, and I didn't even know how to pronounce those names of data. So data is growing dramatically, and the budgets are not, yes? So we are always trying to, and that's how we are coming with these solutions, just to allow for that. So give you full visibility across all your data sets. But the short answer is work with your customer, with your account manager, and they're going to be able to help you on that. But it's forward-looking anyways, doesn't attach the existing contract.
So, one thing I was going to add is, start to have the conversations now. Usually the conversations will lead into your renewal cycle, and then you can talk about making some adjustments at renewal time to our, Cloud Flex model, which allows you also unlimited users, right? So if you don't have that yet, that will also be something that you can take advantage of. On top of the tiering that Sebastian here is.
Yeah. So Ramin alluded. So this is all part of our new licensing model, which we slowly introduced over the last almost a few quarters right now. But it was a gradual, and it has, like Vladimir said, so unlimited users, the variable retention that Sarika mentioned, the fact that you can keep data, different data sets or different retention periods. Everything is self-service. So you don't need anybody to control all that. So routing data back and forth, back to your question, routing data back and forth. So if for a period of time you want to say, hey, you know what, actually this data is not code that I was thought, or basic or tier 2, tier 3, and you think actually it's tier 1, you can route it to a tier 1, you analyze it and then go back. So it's quite not, it is self-service, you decide how you want to use it. And at the end of the day, you have kind of buckets of data, tier 1, tier 2, that's kind of the context is going to look like. You say 100 GB of this side, 200 GB of that one, and it's an average, so you don't have to consume it every day. You can consume one day 0 and the other way 200, the average is 100, so it's still an average over the billing period. So it has the same economical advantages. And you can go back and forth between the data. And I'm sure we're going to, because I'm part of kind of pricing and packaging, we are looking at various ways to become even more, not necessarily competitive, but to address all these questions and needs that you have. Right now, this is where we are. This is just the beginning, anyway. Great question, thank you.
Do have a question. Without committing, the tier 3 stuff, or the tier 3 option, when is that going to be potentially available?
It was a coming soon there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a coming soon sticker on that.
Well, it's still in development, but it will soon be in beta.
So we're going to have probably in the next few months, less than a couple of fingers anyway. So we're going to reach in for a beta program. So we are very close to have that. But I don't want to commit to a date because we are all in software and we know we are most of the time wrong. But I'm sorry, tier 2, it's generally available.
Tier 3 is available.
It's generally available.
Tier 2.
It was available, kind of limited availability. We tried a lot. We are improving. We're constantly improving. So it's an evolution. All these things, it's an evolution. That's why it's going to be released all the time. Yes.
Yeah. I'm curious about if so I have some data that all I care about doing with it is I bring it in, I run it into a scheduled view, and then I never query like the raw data, right? Or I almost never care about the raw data. I only care about the scheduled view. So is there a way that I could use this to like, keep that data in the scheduled view, like highly available, right? But to not be necessarily paying the cost on the raw data continuously.
So,
I can take that also.
I think tiering in this particular case may not be the best way to go, but you can definitely leverage the retention policy. So if you move to the CloudFlex model, then the data that is ingested into your scheduled view can have a higher retention, and then the raw data could have, let's say, 30 days worth of retention, which means that you will save money on the retention, and that is the storage cost that you get. But on the processing cost, it doesn't really make a lot of difference, because as the data comes in, that's when we process the whole bunch of data and run the schedule searches on top of it. So that part of the processing is already done. But for sure, in the storage costs, you can make use of the retention policies.
So there are various solutions, and it's amazing question. It's a really great question. So one of the things is to understand what do you save in the scheduled views. It's almost seems like you save some KPIs or some metrics. Am I correct? So for that, I'm not sure if you've seen the logs to metric solution. So probably that would be even a better option, that we ingest the data as kind of the lower tier, extract some metrics, and then it's not scheduled views, it's just metrics, and then you kind of the metrics backend to search and the data. So you're going to have more 30 months retention, and other capabilities much faster, snappy. So there are other events you go down that route. Again, part of all the flexibility. CloudFlex stands for flexibility. The Flex part. We are going to introduce a lot more new things, and one of them will be like dropping the logs. So bring the logs, and then you process them and drop the logs. So you're going to still pay some for the processing, but just the minimum possible. Bottom line is we are trying to come up with a lot more solutions to. Data is not all equal. That's the message we hear. We hear loud and clear from you, and that's how we are coming to these things. I'm going to try with more ways for you to segment the data and pay the right price, and you get the most value out of that. So.
Yeah, because I would love to be able to
if you're for.
Right. Process the data like as it comes in, store the metrics that I care about, and then shove the rest of it in cold storage, because maybe I'll want to query it again, but
it's a great use case.
I almost never want to, right?
So all our great questions, again, it's aligned perfectly with our vision, and we are working every single day towards that. It's steps. Unfortunately, we don't have probably, I don't know when in next year or so, we're going to have a lot of those things we are saying, but gradually. So we have basic tier 2, it's available. Tier 3, very, very soon. The logs to metrics is in beta. The logs to metrics with dropping the logs is going to be, I think, it's done soon. So we're going to have all these things available shortly, essentially. And if you don't mind, if you can talk offline after this, I would really love to explore that more. So, any other questions?
Once, going twice. All right.
Happy
so
hour
this
it is.
concludes,
Happy
this
hour.
concludes the customer experience track. Let's give a round of applause for Sebastian and Sadika.
Thank you.